We talked about some tiers, the multi-cat stat stuffers yesterday. Today, we're looking at a little bit more of a narrow focus. Big men stats, or traditionally big men stats. Who are the best guys to do it? Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and from tomorrow onwards, this is exclusively a Silksong streaming channel. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is here, and right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. So, not only a thumb and a double bang, but YouTube, if you are watching this on YouTube, there is a new feature called Hype. Now, it is only available on the mobile app. So, if you do, and what YouTube does, it helps boost small creators. So, if you are watching this on your mobile app and you have one of your three hypes that you want to give to me on this video, go for it. What you do is in the section where the comments are, you just scroll across and it will say hype. And you push the button and then you've hyped this show. I will see what it does. I hope it does something, but that you don't write hype in the comments. It's great. The comments are great. Do it as well. But actually flick across on the comments panel on mobile to hit the hype button and go from there. That would be immense for me. All right. So yesterday you hopefully saw the show where we talked about tiers and how I talked about the way that I think some of the traditional positional ways of looking at things maybe, I don't know if they give great results. And it's easy to say, here are the point guards, here are the shooting guards, here are the small forwards. It's easy to do that because we see positionals. But then again, different sides have different positional eligibilities, but different players provide different values at each spot. So I think that it's somewhat, I don't know if redundant is the right word, but I'm not sure it leads you to the right spot. So I said I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try a different way of tiering things. So the first thing I did is I looked at players who provided above average contributions in 5 categories or more. That's what yesterday's show was. And you saw many, even though I explained this yesterday, people were going, where's Devin Booker? Well, he doesn't project for me to be above average in 5 categories. So I didn't put him on that list. There are other players that weren't there. In fact, I think I did 52 players yesterday that came out with above average contributions in 5 categories, meaning there's a lot more to talk about. So we're going to talk about some of that now. Quick note, again, people will ask this all the time, and I'll just continue to reference it. Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl will be back in some form. It will be probably different to last season, and the information will come out at some point next week. Look for it around the 10th of September, I would guess. That is my estimation. All right, so this is, again, a new way of tiering things for fantasy, I think. I don't know. I think yesterday's show was pretty valuable, and I think the reaction was relatively, it was positive. The people enjoyed looking at it that way. Because, again, I'm not sure how much utility there is in just, here are power forwards. I don't know. It's not something that I would ever realistically, when I'm drafting, you go off a tier base that way. Right? So I wanted to try something different. But now that we've done the multi-cat stat stuff as the 5+ above average guys, we need to look at what we're going to attack next. So what I wanted to do is then look at players who didn't hit 5 above average categories. And I wanted to break it down into just groups of 2 categories. Now, I looked at the entire NBA, 550 players, whatever it is, and looked at all the different combinations of individual 2 categories. Not including the multi-cat stat stuff. So in these next few tier shows, those guys that were in the multi-cat show will not be on these shows because, again, if you're drafting them, you're getting their individual strengths, but you're getting them for more robust contributions. What we're talking about here is the guys that are going to help you in 2 to 3 categories. The most, and I think there is utility in this number as well, the most common pairing of a player having 2 categories above average is 3-pointers and free throw percentage. I found 62 players projected above average, not including the multi-cat stat stuffers. 62. The least common pairing of above average contributions is assists and blocks. I found 2 guys. 2. So big differences. Points and blocks, 4 guys. 3-point percentage and 3-pointers made and field goal percentage, 5 players. But then you go to the top end, and this is what we're going to focus on today. Blocks and field goal percentage, rebounds and field goal percentage, rebounds and blocks. Those 3 categories are pretty linked. It's centers, it's power forwards, it's some small forwards, it's some shooting guards are in that group. But that is the next grouping. So when we're talking about drafting, which we did in yesterday's show, the multi-cat guys, but then we want to start to focus on, okay, so what do I need to do? Do I need to boost my, let's call them big man stats, rebounds, field goals, and blocks? Because usually that's what it is. Not always, but usually that's what it is. So I'm going to tier these guys out. So if you see a tier 1 in this, that is not an equivalent of drafting him alongside Nikola Jokic, who was tier 1 in the multi-cat stat stuffers. It's when you decide you want to go more specialized, and this guy is not a multi-cat guy, where do we rank these players? So I'm looking at 3 individual categories. Rebounds, blocks, and field goal percentage. I wanted to find players who had positive contributions or above average contributions. I made the mistake again. Above average contributions in 2 of those 3 categories at least. 2 of those 3 categories at least. Now, there are going to be some players who have weirdness. Domantas Sabonis is the number 1 guy that on my list here in tier 1. But he's not and just for future reference, if you're watching this on YouTube, a player's name who is shaded blue, they are a player who provides above average contributions in all 3 of rebounds, field goal percentage, and blocks. Domantas Sabonis does not do that. But he is a multi-cat guy. He's a 4-category player. We should know that. He's going to provide you value in 4 categories above average. Well, so what are they? We know what he does. He scores, he gets some rebounds, he gets some assists, and he's got good field goal percentage. But we're talking about that combination, which the 3 of the 4 most common pairings of combinations at the top of guys providing these categories was rebounds, blocks, rebounds, field goals, and field goals, blocks. Sabonis provides 2 of those. Now, as you can see, again, look at the ADPs. Reading left to right, Yahoo, Fantrax, ESPN. Sabonis is 11, 17, and 9. I don't have him that high, Domantas Sabonis, this season. After Zach LaVine arrived and Doug Christie was taking over, Sabonis' value dipped. He was not providing the same numbers. His assist numbers dropped. His usage was not as strong. Even for the course of the year, he was 11th in points leagues for the course of the season, but 34th in category leagues. I think some of what he does is overrated. There'll be people who want to take him at 7 in drafts. I've heard that. No way that I'm doing that. I actually don't. I think Sabonis is going to be, if you're drafting him at 9 on ESPN, 11 on Yahoo, I think it's a huge mistake. In points leagues, I get it. I probably wouldn't, but I get it. But I don't have him as that sort of a player for this upcoming season. I don't think he's going to take a gigantic dip down, but again, when the team sort of restructured, his value dipped. And we'll see what that means. So the other guys I've got in tier 1, I talked about guards. Dyson Daniels. Yeah. Dyson Daniels. ESPN ADP of 70. Again, who is drafting on ESPN and what is wrong with you? I'm not a Dyson Daniels in the first round or second round guy or the third round, to be honest. If you want to go back end third, I sort of get it. And this is also remembering that Daniels' best category is steals, yet he is still above average in 2 of the 3 rebounds, blocks, and field goal percentage. He also chucks in some assists. So he's an interesting player in this sort of area. Pascal Siakam is here, who's got a 28, 34, 22 ADP slash line. That's 3rd round. I think, again, might be on the high side, a little bit on the high side. Maybe a little bit. Not outrageously high, but I think he's more of a 4th round guy. As is Dyson. And the other name there is Chet Holmgren, and he's the guy out of these 3 that has above average contributions in all 3 categories, rebounds, blocks, and field goals. I still think there's going to be some concerns about Chet's minutes for this upcoming season, and playing power forward with Hartenstein drops blocks and field goals. But he's one of those guys that, again, traditional 9-cat ranking numbers will make him look significantly better than what I believe he actually is. But he is in this tier 1 grouping. He's not an above average 5-cat contributor according to my projections, Chet Holmgren. But if you're looking for the big man numbers, he's in that upper group. Sabonis, Daniels, Siakam, and Holmgren. Again, you look at Daniels and you get steals. And look at Sabonis and you get assists added in. But Chet gives you the 3 traditional big man numbers with some other stuff that he does as well. And again, this is why ranking stuff in category leagues is tough, because Every player, honestly, outside of maybe a couple of them, every player is unique in that, well, they do this, they do this worse, they do this better, and that's a weird combination. Or he adds this part in. There's a lot of uniqueness. It's not about who scores more fantasy points when you're playing category leagues, very clearly. And, like I'll continue to tell you, there are so many ways to build squads in this form of the game. We'll come back and talk about the other 7 tiers. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, and the NFL season is here. So FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with the can't-miss offer of a lifetime. Maybe not, but it's close enough. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It's easy. You can go onto every game, bet if you want, spreads, totals, straight up, player props, live, in-game, same-game parlays. Chuck a futures bet on. You think someone in week 1's looking a bit shaky, but maybe you think they're going to be undervalued? Well, maybe you see if the price dips and you get in from there. If you're ready to take your knowledge and put it to the test, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. All right, we're talking about tiering players providing the traditional big man stats. That's where we're at. We're talking about rebounds, blocks, and field goal percentage. We're not talking about the guys who are multi-cat stat stuffers. Victor Wembanyama, yeah, he hits these categories. Traditionally, he hits the categories. We talked about him yesterday in the multi-cat stat stuffers, and there was 52 guys that I talked about in yesterday's show that we're not going to cover here. We're going to cover the guys who are 4 or fewer categories above average, but they give you at least 2 of these traditional big man numbers. So who is in tier 2 of this group? We just had the Sabonis, Chet, Siakam, Dyson, Daniels grouping. So now we go to tier 2. Jakob Poeltl is at the top of tier 2, and honestly, my projections actually really like him. I'm a little concerned of what Toronto could do at any point, but he could easily have been. Now, it would seem weird to you, I'm sure, to have Poeltl next to Siakam, next to Chet, next to Sabonis, but he's really pretty close to that, and you can get him incredibly late. 82 on Yahoo as an ADP, 90 on ESPN, 72 on Fantrax. I love that. Now, of course, like I'll say I'll try not to say it again, but every player comes with their unique challenges. Poeltl is going to be horrific at free throw percentage. We know that. He's not going to hit any threes. And he's also a below average scorer. Okay, but again, it depends on how you're trying to build. Have you built your points up a lot with your first 4 picks? And now you want to get some big man numbers in? Here's an option. Do you have to take him in the 50s? No, obviously not. You can get Jakob Poeltl a lot later. But I think the production that he provides, especially in these areas, this is where his strength is. And again, every one of these players here is shaded blue, meaning they contribute positively or above averagely in all 3 of these categories. Poeltl's a really strong option. So is Asar Thompson. And I think Asar, like Poeltl, is being incredibly underrated. Now, there is a risk with Asar. Definitely more than Poeltl, because there is no backup setter to take Poeltl's minutes. I got Walker Kessler in this group. If it's a Zubats is in this group, which we'll talk about in a sec. Asar Thompson could get bigger staffed. They just might say, yeah, minutes restriction. He might not be shooting well enough and he plays 24 minutes. But if he plays 29, this is where he is. And his ADP is outside the top 100 on ESPN. It's barely inside it on Yahoo and Fantrax. Asar is this is what he does. Add in steals as well and some assists. Not that his assists are as high as his brother, clearly. I've got Zubats in this same range. You said, Josh, that's silly. Look at Zubats. His ADP is 34. It's very different to an ADP of 98. You're 100% correct. But I don't care. Why would I care that is how that valuation's there? Again, this does not mean that you would take Asar Thompson next to Ivica Zubats. It means that, to me, Zubats is overvalued, Thompson is undervalued. And you could easily end up with both of them on your team. Zubats was great last season, playing a ton of minutes. And I'm not sure he's going to do exactly the same this season with a full season of Kawhi unless he's deregistered. And Brook Lopez. And John Collins. So, yeah, I'm not as excited about Zubats last season. I'm not taking him there. There is no upside value in him at that spot. In fact, it's downside. But he is a three-cat guy. And then Walker Kessler, the same. He's basically just a 3. What else does he do? Rebounds, blocks, field goals. Nothing else. He won't do anything else. He's horrific at free throws, assists. He's not going to hit threes even though he tried it last season. He doesn't get steals. He's horrific at all that stuff. But when you're going, I need to build up these numbers in these categories, it's where Walker comes in. That's where he can provide that value. So the 4 guys I got in tier 2 for this sort of grouping. Now, the next 5 names are tier 3. And again, it's a slightly eclectic group. DeAndre Ayton, Alex Sarr, Draymond Green, Jalen Duren, and Isaiah Hartenstein. Let's start with Ayton, whose ADP varies wildly, because guess what? Not sure ESPN knows what they're doing. 115 ADP on ESPN, 68 on Yahoo. Ayton is the unquestioned starter in LA. Is Ayton good? Not really. Is he going to have tons of usage? Also, not really. But will he be an elite rebounder? Sure. Will he be a high field goal percentage guy? Probably. Can he get to 1 block a game? I hope so. Like, even last season, when he contested no shots ever, he blocked a shot a game. So, why can't he do it again? He shot 57% with 14 and 10. You can get him in pretty late areas. And I do think that, again, he is significantly better than Jackson Hayes, DeAndre Ayton is. So I don't really think anyone's coming for his minutes. Christian Coloco's not. So I think his role is pretty secure. And like, will his usage be 19.5? Probably not. Might be 17, might be 18. But he's going to hit the 3 categories above average, I believe. I've got Alex Sarr in this range, unless I hear bad news about his calf strain. If we hear that is a grade 3 tear, then he is just not draftable. But if it's just a small thing, they're being precautious with it, then okay, we're good to go. His ADP again. Not sure ESPN knows what they're doing. 132. What? By the way, ESPN standard leagues have 130 players get rostered. So they're suggesting you just don't draft Alex Sarr. That's how drafting is going on that site. Good. Will I ever stop calling out ESPN for bad practices? No. Also, I might make a habit of saying, hey, don't play on Sleeper unless they fix their stuff. Hey, bad app. No, bad fantasy basketball. Don't play it. Make them fix it. Alex Sarr here. Now, is Sarr going to hit all 3 of these categories? No, because his field goal percentage is going to be terrible. But blocks should be good and rebounds should be good. And he only played 27 minutes a night last season. Draymond Green. Yeah, Draymond Green. He's going to play minutes. No one's taking his role. He gets rebounds. He blocks a shot. And his field goal percentage is pretty good. He continues to be underrated in fantasy leagues still because he doesn't score. But again, that will work for some of you. And for others, it won't. And that is why, again, there are so many different ways to do things in fantasy. Jalen Duren, the passport legend. You will notice gigantic differences. Like, there's a 50-spot difference in ADP between Draymond Green and Jalen Duren, but should there be? Last season, Duren was bad to begin the year. Isaiah Stewart was taking his minutes. And then we saw Duren's production step up towards as the season went on. His block rate did improve. He's a high field goal percentage guy. I'm not sure if he's got huge amounts left in the tank to do more, but in this area, totally cool. And the same with Isaiah Hartenstein, who I think, again, makes sense here. Field goal percentage legend, blocks shots, grabs rebounds, adds some cheeky assists in there as well. And we know that his minutes are probably capped upside-wise because of how the Thunder run their rotation, but he's still good. Let's go to tier 4. I only got 3 guys in this tier, but it's an interesting mix. Toumani Camara, Matus Buzelis, and Jarrett Allen. And there is a wild discrepancy in where their ADPs are. That's because I am very skeptical of Allen this season. Now, I am less skeptical now because of the Garland / more importantly, the Strus injury, which means they play double big more, I think. But Allen was getting phased last season. He was playing like 26 minutes a night down the stretch. Might as well just bring the Jarrett Allen graphic up now. He didn't really block shots, and they were using a lot more Evan Mobley at center. Now, this season, when Strus is out, the ability to do that is a little harder because who's your 4? Yeah, DeAndre Hunter's there, but he's going to have to play a lot more at the 3, which leads to some of those problems as I realize that Jarrett Allen graphic just isn't working for some reason, so I better just bring this back across. But Allen should be, hopefully, able to be a positive in field goal percentage. Buzelis, I love Buzelis, even inside the top 100. And Toumani Camara, not sure that there's gigantic upside there, but he is a player. Allen should be positive in or above average in those 3 categories. Camara and Buzelis, not necessarily. I think you look at Buzalis as a blocks and rebounds guy, and Kamara is more of a rebounds and field goals guy. Or he could, yeah, but he's obviously bringing value in steals. And there are different bits and pieces of value that all of these different players bring. We know that by now. We've got 4 more tiers to cover off. And as you'll note, we've done 4 tiers so far. But we're in the area now where we're talking about round 9 of a traditional draft, outside the top 100 in picks. So we're talking about grabbing specialists late. So in tier 5, Zach Edey, who I would have up in tier 4 of this grouping of players if he wasn't injured to start the season. This is what he does. He will get big rebounds. He will block shots and he'll have high field goals. This is what he does. Straightforward. He contributes above average in all of those categories. Kal-El Ware, Superman. Again, should do this. He can add some threes in, sure. I don't love that there's a 30 spot difference between Ware and Edey's ADP. He's at up to 87 Kal-El on Yahoo. Now, of course, on ESPN, he's considered undraftable. But, Josh the Hitman Hart. Again, big discrepancy. ADP of 35 on ESPN. Are we serious? 35. Josh Hart. Now, the difference is that Josh Hart is shooting guard eligible on a lot of sites. Now, he hasn't played shooting guard in about 4 years, but he's shooting guard eligible. I don't know that he's going to start this season. I feel very confident he's not going to play 38 minutes a night. Very good rebounder, very high field goal percentage last season, which also maybe doesn't hold. And he gives nice positional assists. They're pretty strong. But it's a completely new situation in New York this year. And 35 is clearly a league-losing move. Even 55 on Yahoo, I've got no interest in doing that. And this is the area I think Josh Hart should be sitting. I also have Rudy Gobert here. Now, Gobert is a player who's been much better than this in the past, but he's getting older. Randall's still there. Reed returns. There's no reason to think that Gobert needs to play more necessarily this upcoming season, and we've seen some of his block rate stuff drop, but he is still above average in all 3 of those categories. That is what he does. And then 2 names you'll be a little surprised about, Keegan Murray and the thick hogsman, Tobias Harris. Harris is going incredibly late, 116. Murray's at 112. Now, Murray's a low usage guy, Harris is a bit higher. But they do contribute positively in 2 of these 3 categories. And they're not names that you necessarily think of when you go rebounds, blocks, field goals. Because they'll add some points. They'll hit threes. But they do contribute above average in these 3 categories. Which again, I think becomes an important thing to note. In tier 6, got 6 names here. Again, we're towards the end of a draft now. Tari Eason. Is it this season for Tari Eason? Probably not. But he will do his thing, just with a limited upside. Naz Reid, who I think is going a little high. ADP of 89. A little high. John the Baptist Collins. Won't be able to do what he did last season in Utah. I'm very sure of that for numerous reasons. A, he won't be able to do what he did in that was play 40 games. He'll play more. But he also won't have the unfettered access to the usage that he did. But he still gets rebounds. He still will have high field goals. And honestly, he will be most likely above average in blocks. So he is an all 3 category guy. Jaden McDaniels, also, when that team was healthy at the end of the season, we saw his per game production fall off a cliff. But I still think he can be a positive contributor. Maybe not in rebounds, but 0.9 blocks, 56, 54 from the field, whatever it is. Solid enough. And then 2 traditional type centers, Nick Claxton and Donovan Clingan. Clingan, I believe his upside is limited due to fitness. I don't think that foul trouble was really too much of a problem for that last season. Blocks, rebounds, field goals. Yes, Young Hun Sen is there. Rob Williams, Dwop Reith, but Clingan's going to get the first crack and the bulk of those minutes. But in tier 6 of these sort of big man stat contributors, and you notice there's quite I think you'd look at most of those guys and go, I'd be good with getting Johnny Collins. I like getting Clingan. Claxton might bounce back. He might not, but he might. I think you'd be okay with a lot of that. Tier 7 is the largest tier that I've got here. There's 15 names in it. And a lot of these guys will go undrafted. But they still have an ability to provide, and this is where we talk about, I did above average in terms of the top 200 players. Because I believe if you're drafting a 12-man league, you've either got 13 or 14-man rosters, you've got injured reserve slots, and streaming is still a huge part. So if you're looking at just the top 150 guys, there are going to be 50 other players, probably more, probably 80 other players during the course of the season that play significant roles during the year. It's going to happen. So I wanted to go a bit deeper. But you're going to find 15 guys I'm going to talk about here in Tier 7 that half of them won't be drafted, but they can still provide above average contributions for 2, and in a lot of these cases, 3 of these categories. So who are these guys? Chris Boucher, Derek Lively II, Wendell Carter Jr., his backup, at least backup for the beginning of the season, Goga Badadze, because Mo Wagner will be out. Now, Badadze is playing really well in Eurobasket, but also remember, when you see big performances at Eurobasket, Alperen Şengün cooking Jokic, which, okay, cool. You see Goga playing incredibly well. You see Larry Markkinen rediscovering his form. Remember, A, different types of competition, but B, they're the only guys you are seeing. We aren't seeing the other players not involved in Eurobasket playing. So all we have in our head is, look what Lowry's doing. Versus, look what, I don't know, OG Anunoby is doing. Not the same player, obviously. But we're not hit with highlights from both sides saying, OG did this, Lowry did this. You're seeing a third of the NBA playing, the rest not, so your mind immediately goes, Goga's cooking. Now, I don't think Goga's going to start over Wendell Carter Jr., but you saw me in my mock the other day. I just took a flyer, like maybe. Could he play 22 minutes out of the gate with Mo Wagner out? Maybe. I got Kyle Filipowski in there as well, who I don't think will start, but he could. That Jazz lineup makes no sense at this stage. And Filipowski is a strong rebounder and a good field goal guy. He will also score well. Now, he doesn't ever block shots, but he produces enough value. Remember, the blue names highlighted, Lively, Carter, and Badadze, should be above average in all 3 rebounds, blocks, and field goals. The next group, a lot of these guys won't be drafted, but Day'Ron Sharpe, even in limited minutes, can still give you above average production in all 3 categories. Is he a guy that I want drafted? Not really. But when we're talking about supplementing a team or looking, what do I need for this week? How does the Nets schedule look? Hey, Day'Ron's coming off the bench and playing 20 minutes. What if I get 18 rebounds from him during the week with 3 blocks on 58%? Might be enough, yeah? Neemias Queta. His projection could be way higher if I had clarity on who would start. But I don't, so he's here. I also currently have Al Horford projected to play for the Golden State Warriors. I don't know whether he will or not. I've got no idea because they have not made a single move all season. And they're still waiting for Jonathan Kuminga. By the way, as you know, one of the restricted free agents took the qualifying offer, Cam Thomas, meaning he's not tradable this season. And he's an unrestricted free agent in the offseason, $6 million. I think that he will try and get as many shots as possible. The Nets have absolutely no interest in him doing that. So I would be bumping him down a little bit on the old draft board because clearly they do not see eye to eye in value and Cam will want out. And the Nets will have no business, unless they're trying to lose games, in making him take more shots. Which, maybe come to think of it, maybe they will let him take more shots. So go for a Cam. We'll go 0-82. Knock yourself out. Anyway, Al Horford. If he plays for Golden State, he might start. He probably won't, but he could. But he's going to do enough in those categories to be an elite sort of streaming guy. Same with Jonas Valanciunas. Anytime Jokic is out, JV will be an absolute must-roster guy. JV is not a guy that I love, but he is still going to give you very strong rebounds, above average, and field goal percentage. Well, not very strong, but enough over the course of the season that if you've got stash ability, it makes sense. And then we don't know what's happening with the Charlotte Center, so Moussa Diabate is there. He's a very good rebound guy and field goal guy, terrible at blocks. But as a starting center, we'd be interested in that. The last grouping of the Tier 7 players, a lot of the traditional centers here, Mitchell Robinson, Isaiah Jackson, and Daniel Gafford, they are projected above average in all 3 categories. Now, their minutes upside is relatively low. Jackson is coming off Achilles surgery. He will probably sit back-to-backs and likely behind Jay Huff, who's also in Tier 7. He is a very good shot blocker. He can be a high field goal percentage player. And if we see that he is starting, then we will bump him up and he will get drafted everywhere. And I'll probably still suggest considering him. Mitchell Robinson could start over Josh Hart. Again, upside is limited, but if Mitchie gets 26, and I don't have him projected at that, but if he does, well, that's a lot more value. And then Gafford, again, is backup. There's Lively, there's Davis. PJ Washington just signed an extension. So Gafford's a 21, 22 minute a night player, but like Valanciunas, like Robinson, like Jackson, even in backup minutes, there's enough there to supplement these categories. And the last two names in Tier 7, Jay Huff, who I just think should be drafted in all leagues until we hear differently, and Adem Bona, should be drafted in all leagues until we hear differently. And by differently, I mean Joel Embiid is ready to go opening night, or Andre Drummond's our guy, which probably should mean that self-branded hat legend Nick Nurse is fired on the spot. But that could happen. So Adem Bona, Jay Huff, two guys that I believe are absolute must-draft players. And by must-draft, what I mean is they should not sit undrafted. You don't have to grab them. You don't take Jay Huff at pick 100, but somebody in your league should take them. And if you're sitting there in round 13 and no one's taken Jay Huff or Adem Bona, just do it. Let's just do it and see where we end up. The last tier is 6 players. It's tier 8 of the rebounds, field goals, and blocks guys. Only one of these players, in my projections, looks to be above average in all 3. And that is a guy that I think has almost no upside, but that's Yves Missi. But again, I can not like Missi and his fit alongside Zion Williamson, and I don't. I've been pretty clear about that, pretty vocal about that. But if you are looking for contribution boosts in these 3 areas, Missi can still do it. He is going to play. Their other option is Derek Queen. Like, he's going to play. Luka Garza's here. I don't know whether Garza's going to play over Cater. If he does, we bump him up. He's not really a blocks guy, but rebounds and field goals, yeah. And probably like Huff and Bona, I think Cater and Garza both should be drafted in all leagues. Ryan Dunn is much like Josh Hart, or like Dyson Daniels, or Tamani Kamara, or even Matas Buzelis. Someone who's providing value here that doesn't really fit that archetype. Dunn probably is the Suns' starting power forward. Now, he could be absolutely horrific at field goal percentage and free throw percentage, but he'll block above average shots, he'll get rebounds and steals. And he, for some reason, was taking threes. So he's just, again, a name that's not really getting considered. I've got 2 other Charlotte starting centers or potential starting centers. I don't think the cockroach, Mason Plumlee, will start, but his name is there. And the other one is the big cock himself, Ryan Cockbrenner, who, if we find out that Cockbrenner is starting, and he's the guy I do think there's more upside in than Diabate, but Cockbrenner's ability to block shots, rebound, field goal percentage, maybe some threes, is interesting. And the last name is old faithful himself, Brook Lopez. Not enough minutes to be considered a must-draft guy. To me, he's the backup to Zubats. I don't think they play together. But you know there are going to be times where we can use Lopez in certain situations. His field goal percentage is normally not the greatest strength. His rebounds aren't awesome. And unless he's getting 32 minutes, which is what he played last season, then his block numbers probably won't be super good. But he's got to be in at least that flyer categorization of someone who you stream in or you take at the end of the draft because you want to boost specific areas. Again, whenever I'm introducing something like this as a new concept, I hope that it's received well, and I hope that it is understood. I hope that it's understood. Because I am always trying to do things differently, and what I would say is better or at least more useful. But the only way it becomes more useful is if we understand how. So I didn't talk about Nikola Jokic or Jalen Johnson or Scotty Barnes or Evan Mobley or Jaren Jackson or LeBron James or Şengün or Embiid or Mark Williams, because these are all guys with projections that were in yesterday's show of above average in 5+ categories. These are the guys that aren't as broad in what they do, but can help you in 2 of the 3 at least: rebounds, blocks, and field goal percentage, the traditional big man categories. Like I said, if you've got a spare hype, throw it on the video on the YouTube mobile app, but leave comments, subscribe. Check out all the other shows on the network as well, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.